In this video, we're going to be looking at,
A bunch of cute little babies. Oh my gosh, they're so cute.
actually, we're going to be talking about the placenta and the umbilical cord. When these little guys pop out, they've got a little umbilical cord attached to them. So that's really, really cute, right? And it ends up being your belly button. So let's talk about a few of those things that end up creating your belly button. So, oops. Here's a couple of diagrams. So when people talk about the placenta, often people get confused with some of the diagrams that are inside, and when you see something like this, obviously, okay, here is the fetus. Maybe it's big enough to be called a baby. Here's the umbilical cord. The umbilical cord is actually attached to the placenta, and the placenta is attached to the uterine wall. And so that's one diagram to look at. Another one showing the same thing. So watch out to be confused about this. Usually the baby is inverted like this, and then the umbilical cord is coming around. There's a danger sometimes of the umbilical cord wrapping around the neck, and that can cause some problems as well too. In a later video, we'll be talking about the process of birth specifically. I had a student draw some diagram before, and I asked them to show how the belly button was actually connected. How does the belly button connect to the mother, basically? And they drew a really cute picture of a baby out here with the belly button and a cord connected to the belly button of the mother. Okay, it's not like that, unfortunately. The mother's belly button was from her mother, so the belly button would actually, the umbilical cord from the baby would actually go back up through into the uterus and then touching the placenta, of course. I thought that was quite humorous. Very clever, very clever. Here's another close-up diagram of what's going on here. We're going to talk about this in detail as well too. So how this tissue actually invades the uterine wall, and that actually during birth, after the baby is expelled, the placenta also follows. They don't show that in the movies very often, though. You see the baby getting born, good stuff happens, la la la. Sometimes they come out really, really clean in the movies, and then the placenta is going to come out a little bit later. So another diagram showing this thing here with the umbilical cord still attached to the placenta, and it gets expelled as well, and then the separates from the uterine lining. Okay, so let's go look at some of the specific details here. So the placenta is actually tissue that belongs to the baby, the fetus. It's foreign tissue that has invaded the mother's uterine wall, invaded kind of like, you can kind of think of it like alien-wise, where it's setting down roots and it's going to try to suck out a bunch of good stuff, like nutrients and oxygen and everything like that. It allows the blood of the baby and the mother to get really, really close, but not actually mix. Close enough so that things like diffusion can happen and molecules can be transferred in between. You know many of the molecules that are involved. We're going to mention them here: oxygen, carbon dioxide, urea, glucose, and other nutrients, vitamins. But some things don't pass through, and the blood doesn't actually mix, which is why a mother and a baby can have a completely different blood type as well too. So a few things for you to understand. In this particular diagram, the baby is on this side, okay? The mother is towards the top. This guy just looks like he's ready to fight, like this guy. The placenta is disc shaped. A lot of people confuse the amniotic sac with the placenta. The amniotic sac, which we'll see a little bit later, it's just a shock absorbing sac that contains fluid and holds the baby inside. That's not the placenta. Okay, the placenta is outside, and the placenta is actually embedded into the uterine wall. A few other things. Placental villi, we're talking about projections, large surface area for gas exchange, and other materials. So you see surface area increasing in many different aspects of everything in the system. So here, anytime there are small finger-like projections, it's to increase the surface area. It increases the rate at which materials can diffuse across. The fetal blood actually flows through the villi here, and in the spaces in between, can you see this clearly here? The spaces between the maternal blood will flow. So it's like these tubes that allow the fetal blood to flow through, but they're really long, thin tubes, finger-like, and they allow a lot of surface area for the fetal blood to interact with the maternal blood without actually mixing. Okay. Deoxygenated fetal blood flows from the fetus to the placenta along two umbilical arteries. There's one question that comes up. You should know that arteries in your normal body, arteries are going to carry blood away from the heart, and veins are going to carry blood towards the heart. But when you have a human on both sides of that umbilical cord, somebody's got to take the that direction rule is not entirely going to work. And so we understand that veins are used to deliver the blood to actual babies because of the lower pressure, and it's thought that the higher pressure could actually end up harming the fetus. Okay, so that's mentioned here. Endometrium is another word for the uterine lining, so that's the lining that gets shed during when a woman has her period. But as you know, if a woman misses her first period and she's been sexually active, then there may be a chance that she may be pregnant, and that is a good thing if she's missed her period and she's hoping to have a kid, because the uterine wall will continue to grow, and it will be a perfect place for an embryo to set in, and for this placenta to develop and easily hook up to all these wonderful blood vessels and capillaries to get a good source of oxygen and nutrients. Myometrium is referring to a deeper layer. It's basically the muscular wall of the uterus to allow for uterine contractions when a baby needs to be expelled during childbirth. More on specific childbirth in a specific future video. So that's the general structure here. Now if we zoom in even closer and try to see cell-wise what we're actually looking at here. Here's a very nice diagram. Added some color here. These are red blood cells. You get the approximate size of what's going on, and the general direction of which way things get passed. So if you see this, you could probably tell oxygen is going to be moving down this direction. So that means the baby's on this side, the mother's on this side. The mother is not going to be passing. The mother does not want to pass extra carbon dioxide, extra urea to the baby. They are producing their own, and the mother's going to get rid of it through breathing out a little bit more and through urinating, producing urine a little bit more. So once again, mother's on this side passing these things to the baby, and the baby, the fetus, is on this side passing these things up towards the mother. So here's the mother's side, maternal blood in the intervillous space. Intervillous just means between the villi in the previous diagram that we saw. The placental barrier is, we name it this thing called the chorion. And you should see some structure related to function stuff going on in here. Can you identify a specific organelle that's in here? Very good. These should be small mitochondria. Mitochondria are important because they help us to produce ATP. So ATP is going to help with the transport of materials back and forth, especially if we're sending them against a concentration gradient. Just a separate structure here called the basement membrane. We're going to see that in the kidney and a bunch of things as well too. This is just a general structure, not so important. Surface area increased by microvilli, we talked about already. Active transport by ATP. The capillary carrying fetal blood is very close to the villus surface, and then again very thin walls. So this kind of actually reminds me of gas exchange, in the sense that walls are very thin and diffusion can happen readily and quickly in order to send things back and forth if we need to. A very small distance separating the maternal and the fetal blood. And the chorion also plays a role in the production of particular hormones, and in this case it would be estrogen and progesterone, as we're talking about the placental structure here, and then some connective tissue that's going to hold all of this together. So what are these significant things? If you had to pick 4 of these things to highlight and discuss as being essential for a properly functioning placenta, which 4 of these things would they be? Okay, I think that is it. Check out this note down here, and a quick question for you to look at. Pause the video and then read the question, please. Go. Okay. I paused for a long time because I know some of you didn't pause yourself. So I did that on purpose. That was fantastic. Did you figure out what the correct answer is? I'm not going to tell you the answer. Just kidding. I will. But make sure if you didn't get it right, go back and read it. That's a lot of writing for one multiple choice question. Not very typical of IB style questions. More typical of AP style questions. But multiple choice questions can be a lot more difficult. And in this case, I think this is a lot more challenging than a simple open-ended question because you really have to read it carefully and make sure you understand the details. So process of elimination should have led you to this as the correct answer. Okay, good luck with everything and post questions. And make sure next time you see someone's belly button, make sure they know where they came from.